Hello, I'm Cameron Kirko, the CIO here at Pitcher Partners Sydney, and I'm here to present our economic and market outlook with a particular focus on the international economy. But first, just a general disclaimer to note that this presentation is for general advice, general information purposes only. So if we turn to the international economy, really what we're seeing is a case of stabilising with scope for further improvement. So we did see a bit of a shock from the Middle East with the sort of US-Israel coalition attacking Iran and the subsequent closure of the Strait of Hormuz. What we're seeing now, though, is that situation starting to stabilise. There have been still some persistent skirmishing, but by and large, we are starting to see a normalisation of tanker flows through the strait, and that's seen the global economy move past this as a particular crisis moment. So if we look past sort of what's happened in the Middle East and look at some of our key economic blocks, what we're seeing in the US is really a case of continued strength. You've got the free kick from the World Cup and sort of the increased spending we're seeing as a result of that on areas such as hospitality and leisure. And by and large, US consumers have remained remarkably strong for this period. It helps that the US is actually a net energy exporter in this situation, but by and large, the US is still going strong, and you are seeing the flow and benefits of them being the center of the AI economy and the spending related to that. So we remain quite positive on the American economy, particularly while the consumer remains so strong. It's really hard to see sort of weakness in the global economy until that consumer backdrop changes markedly. Now, elsewhere, we are seeing some causes for concern. So within China, for example, retail sales have really softened in recent months, and that's a flow-on effect of you had this sort of cash for clankers program that really encouraged households to shift their spending for things such as household appliances and cars and replace the old with the new. As those programs have rolled off, you've seen a subsequent slowdown in retail sales. But on the flip side, China's continued to make leaps and bounds as an export leader, taking share in electric vehicles, for instance, as well as continuing to grow its advanced manufacturing. So while it's not the best domestic backdrop, there is still scope for cautious optimism with China. And then turning to Europe, look, as a net energy importer, they bore the brunt of what's happened in the Middle East, and they're also facing competitive challenges with the rise of China really impacting Germany, for example. But even within Europe, we're still seeing some cause for gradual optimism as it stabilizes from this energy shock situation. And looking further ahead, we're not seeing sort of outlandish extreme growth, but if we were to summarize the global economy, US is still a sort of clear leader amongst the developed world, and we're starting to see a positioning for recovery elsewhere that leaves us optimistic on the global economy going forward. And so, broadly speaking, you're starting to see this in the pickup for consensus forecasts as well. And some of the headwinds that might emerge would probably be if we see a material slowdown in AI spending within the US economy. And the other factor in recent weeks has just been the possibility of still elevated inflation in the US, seeing the Federal Reserve markedly move on interest rates with rate hikes. Those are probably two headwinds that we're still focused on, but by and large, we're optimistic on the global economy. We were concerned with the energy shock, but looking forward, we are positive. And thank you.